Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Such a joy to be back. Been away for a few weeks.
Welcome back.
Thank you. And as we start yet another month, June 2017. Who would believe it? Huh? It's going so fast. The theme of the month, it is justice of afflictions. We know, through the study of Spiritism, that our suffering is part of our growth. But is it punishment? Or is just what we need to go through? A regular part of our natural laws. So that's the question that Teresa is going to answer for us in her lecture today. I'd like to do a special welcome to the everyone watching us online on Facebook Live or at Fab TV. As well, a special thank you for all of these people who have come here for the first time to the TSS. It's always a great pleasure to see new faces, to meet new people, and welcome you to our home, which hopefully will become your home as well. So let's get started. I will ask my lovely wife, Sandra, to do the initial reading and then the prayer.
So the reading is from the book Happy Life, from Divaldo Pereira Franco and Joana de Angelis. And here we go. Calm the anxiety of constant change. God has put you in the best place for your moral and spiritual progress. The home that you have, the work you do, the city where you live, and training opportunities for your evolution. A rolling stone gathers no moss, goes the old saying. He who is constantly changing never matures, nor does they accomplish anything. Complete your task where you are, and at the appropriate moment, after meditation, decide where you are truly headed. So, let's close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to God, our Creator, to Jesus, our Master of Love, our guiding light, to all the spirits present here today, the incarnate and discarnate ones. And we ask, God, please open up our minds and our hearts for the lessons that we are about to hear. Bring us the peace, the harmony, the equilibrium, so we can get all these new lessons and use them on our daily lives, so we can continuously progress towards you. Be with us and help Teresa, who is about to give us this lecture, to open her heart and her mind for the lecture. And so be it. Teresa.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here today to listen a little bit of, what I have to bring today. So, as the PowerPoint and Joe pointed out, today we're going to be talking about the justice of afflictions and discussing a little bit if is that a punishment or that's a natural law. And when I put a natural law there, actually this morning I was thinking about it probably be more in the sense of a natural consequence. So when I put a natural law, it didn't mean that there is a law that says like that, but it's more, is the afflictions coming from a punishment? There is actually a law that says if you did this, you're going to be punished and that's it. Or it's more like a natural consequence, something that's part of, like you have the laws of physics, that natural consequence. If I throw a ball against the wall, it will come back to me, action and reaction, right? Just natural. So that's the question. Are we afflicted? Are we despaired when bad things happen to us because we're being punished, or just a natural consequence? So as a Spiritist, if we always have this thing to think that afflictions always come from a previous life, right? If I'm going through some hardship right now, it's definitely something that I did in a previous life, or maybe even in this life. And that's true. we can think like that. We can still think, and we know there is laws of action and reaction. If I did something in the previous life or lives, and I did something up to now, I could create some bad situations for me, and I'll have to do it because they actually are a way of repair what I did wrong, right? But when thinking about afflictions in that way, we only thinking about it that in a very superficial way, right? Because if I ask you right now, it's like, oh, why are you so afflicted now? Why are you going through this hardship? So, oh, it's something I did in the past life. And I was like, okay, so, and why you did had some afflictions and hardship in the past life? So, oh, it's something that I did on the life before. Okay, and how about the life before? Well, that's the life even before that, and we can go on and on and on and on with it, right? So the question is, when exactly our afflictions started? Because at some point it had to start. At some point I made something, then they start to come. Because if one is consequence of the other, clearly back in somewhere in time, I did something, then I'll start to create those afflictions, right? So where is that beginning? It's very easy. We actually have a book that tells us the beginning. It's called the Bible. And there is a book in the Bible called Genesis. And that's where everything started. And Genesis explains exactly when our afflictions started, right? So when you go to chapter 2 and 3 of the Genesis, it tells the story of Adam and Eve, and everything that's happening there. And so chapter 2 tells us that God created man, and he also created this beautiful garden called the Eden. And he put all sorts of trees, food trees, in this garden, so probably fruit trees. So imagine all kind of fruits that you can possibly eat in your life. They're all there. So this beautiful garden with a lot of trees. But he also put two very special trees in this garden. One was the tree of lives with an S, although most translations will say life. But as per Haroldo Dutra Dias, the original in Hebrew, it's actually the plural, the tree of lives. And he put it in the middle of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Yes, it was not an apple tree. It's not. So breaking news. There's no apple trees in the Genesis. You can read the Genesis everywhere. I really would like someone to explain me where this apple tree came from. There's no apple tree. So go ahead, go home, eat your apples, you safe. Not a problem at all. No problem. There's no apple in the Genesis. There's no apple tree. How did that story came up? Not quite sure. But the truth is, there was a tree called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So, after he created the garden, he takes the man, takes Adam, puts him in the garden, and say, hey, this is the garden for you. Go ahead, enjoy the garden, name everything. So basically, it's the invitation to be, from now on, you're going to be a co-creator with this garden. So you're going to take care, you're going to expand this garden, you're going to name things. It's your garden. Enjoy it. But he gives one commandment only to Adam. He tells him, so of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the way that you eat of it you shall surely die. So that's the only thing he told. You can touch even the tree of lives, go ahead, please eat from it, but do not touch or eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or you're gonna die. It's like, okay, so he follows the command, he's totally fine, but at the end of chapter 2, God creates the woman. So here comes Eve, right? So, and of course, he's not talking about a man and a woman, okay? It's just symbols. Eve's just represent a type of human being, and Adam as well, right? So it's not, let's not talk to the point to think that, it's the woman who's doing things. And of course, I'm trying to defend my side as well in that sense. But on chapter 3 starts the famous conversation between Eve and the serpent, right? So Eve is there in the garden, have a great time, right? Then the serpent comes, very sneaky, and say, hey, so you're enjoying here the garden? And she goes, oh yeah, I'm enjoying. It's a beautiful garden. It's fantastic. Sunny day. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's good. Yeah. She goes, oh, so you can eat from everything. And then Eve goes, wow, we can, but God said to us, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, so the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is put in the midst of the garden, that one we shall not eat, because God said, you shall not eat it, you shall not touch it, lest you die. Right? So Eve knew the rule. They're falling into there until someone came to them and said, that's not true, actually. So the serpent clearly had a plan here. And the plan was, you know what? I'm on the evil side and I want to bring someone to my side. So I'm going to start to attract people. So when Eve tells that to her, that was the rule, the serpent tells right away, say, you will not surely die. So that's not true. You're not going to die. For God knows that in the way you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So that was the proposal that the serpent to Eve was like, the day that you eat this fruit, the only reason he doesn't want you to eat from it is because he knows that if you eat, you're going to be as powerful as he is. Today, with the knowledge that we have, we know that's impossible. Nobody can be as powerful as God. Because if anybody can be as powerful as God is, he would lose his properties, which is be the only one, the most powerful, the most knowledgeable, right? Nobody can acquire the true perfect perfection that God has, right? But that's what the serpent told her. So basically what the serpent was telling Eve right there was that evil is as powerful as God. So evil gives you power. That's what's telling Eve right there. So Eve heard this power, and then she goes, that's very interesting. I like this plan because I like power, right? That's fantastic. So she calls Adam and say, hey, there is this proposal here. It seems to be fantastic. Because in this proposal, we're not only going to be powerful, but we actually can take God away. We don't need him. We're going to be as powerful than he is. So let's get rid of him, right? And that's what it is. So they eat from the tree of the knowledge of evil. And that's what it is. It's the symbology of this symbology of the moment that we decide to take God out of the command and I put myself in there. That's actually what the symbology it is. And of course, when we had God in command, we had a perfect being. He's the creator. He knew what was right and wrong. So all his laws and everything that he put in place was perfect. It's perfect. Nothing needs to be changed because he is God. Now I take God out of the command and I put myself in there. No, I'm in command right now. Well, I'm an imperfect spirit. So clearly my rules are going to be imperfect as well. Because it's impossible for me as an imperfect spirit, full of pride, vanity, selfishness, and everything, come up with the laws that are perfect and based on the laws of love and charity and fraternity. Right? So basically, God had a plan for us when he created us, but we decided to come up with our own plan. And what was God's plan? So we know through the Spiritism, through the Spirit's book, that when God created us, he created us simple and ignorant. And let's really think about this word ignorant, because this is a key word right here. Because when he created us ignorant, Was he expecting us to make mistakes? Yes, of course he was. We're ignorant. Of course we're going to make mistakes. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. When a kid goes to kindergarten or grade 1 and they start to learn mathematics, the teacher doesn't expect that I'm going to teach them one time how to multiply or how to add numbers, and they're never going to make any mistake again. They're learning, right? It's a skill that they didn't have it before, and they're slowly learning that skill. So yeah, it's going to have some mistakes in there. So of course God was expecting us to make a lot of mistakes as we're evolving. But you're expected to make mistakes out of ignorance. Because there is a huge difference of making a mistake out of ignorance and make a mistake out of evil. Right? So at the end of the day here, everybody leaves TSS. I'm the last one. I know Joe is in the washroom, who has no key, has no cell phone, and you know what? I have no clue that he's in the washroom. And I leave TSS, I lock the door, and I go and I leave him here locked inside. I had no clue he was in the washroom. I didn't check the washroom. So by ignorance, I locked him inside here. Now he's going to start for the whole day. He's going to knock at this door like crazy. I didn't mean to do this to him. Or, I know he's in the washroom. And you know what? I don't like him. And in fact, he did something to me really bad, and I'm going to get back to him. So I'm going to lock him inside of here, in purpose. So I'm going to look and observe. So I'm going to premeditate. Oh, I noticed everybody left. I know Joanne. I know he has no keys. I know everything. So I calculated everything, and I locked him inside of TSS. What do you think is going to be the consequence of mistakes for one and the other? Responsibility in the act. Completely different, right? So I'm driving my car on the street, and all of a sudden they distract for a second. Child crossed the street after a ball, and I run off this kid, and this kid's badly injured, or even I kill the kid. I had no intention at all. Am I still responsible? Yes, I'm still responsible. There is intention in there? Not at all. But if I don't like someone, I premeditate, and I'm just going, no, I know what time this person leaves for work. I'm going to wait here in my car, and when they're crossing the street, I'm going to run them over because I want to kill them for whatever reason they did to me. Completely different responsibility. So in God's plan, when He created simple and ignorant, He was expecting us to make mistakes. But mistakes out of the ignorance. And we would learn all our mistakes. And it is. Usually when we do something to someone without having the meaning of doing something, okay, you offend someone you didn't mean, or whatever, usually you feel so bad, and you're the first one to want to fix it, right? Oh, I'm so sorry I did this. I really didn't mean it. Please forgive me. What can I do to repair this to you, right? Which is different when I do something out of actually, yeah, I did it, and they deserve it. I don't care. You know, that's what I did, right? Completely different. So God's plan was not that we're going to not make mistakes right from the beginning, because it's impossible. Created simple and ignorant. It's impossible that we would not make mistakes. We would be making mistakes right from the beginning, out of ignorance. The moment we start to decide to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that's the moment that we start to experiment evil. So now I start to make choice. I take out God off the equation. I try to start to make choices based on my vices. So now I start to make choices out of pride, selfishness, greedy, and everything. So now I start to calculate my mistakes. I start to choose my mistakes. Right? I start to do things based on, I think about them. I calculate them. So they're no longer mistakes out of ignorance, but now they're out of evil. So we can think, so God's plan and Teresa's plan is completely different. No, they're not. In fact, God's plan and Teresa's plan is almost the same. It's actually very, very, very similar. Because God's plan talk about love, talk about respect, talks about dignity, safety, happiness, charity, fraternity. My plan, Teresa's plan, also talks about love, respect, dignity, happiness, fraternity. This is the same plan. It's just one tiny difference. One tiny difference that makes a huge difference in the long run is when God talks about all of these things, he talks about the whole humanity. When he talks about love, he's talking about love for all. Carnine, this plan, the other plan, it doesn't matter. It's for the whole humanity. Love. Teresa's plan, yeah, I talk about all this, but it's for me. It's for me, my family, my friends, the people that I know. I don't like you, you're out, you don't need any respect, dignity, you don't need a shelter, you don't need anything. But I like you, yeah, no, you do. See the difference? It's the same plan. But one, it's for all. The other one is just for me and the people that are close to me. And eventually, if I really insist in this vice and feeding this vice, eventually it's going to be really just for me. Because I don't even care for my family. And we see this out of there. People who don't even care for their own families. Their parents could be dying or eat, like with no food. I don't care. It's my life. So eventually, the plan is going to be really only for me. Time difference. Just a time difference. Plan's the same. I wish the same things as God, but just for me, right? That's the moment we're eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? So that's the moment where we change God's plan. That we're supposed to have a journey based just in our simplicity and ignorance, and as we go through experience, sometimes here incarnated, sometimes discarnated, incarnated, through the experience, would acquire enough moral and intellectual knowledge that would be slowly getting rid of this ignorance and replacing with good values, moral values, with intellectual knowledge, so we can help to progress. Because he gave us the garden and said, now, from now on, you co-create it, develop it, right? But we decide to add evil to the equation. And that's when the afflictions started. And that's exactly what the question 120 for the Spirit's book says. So Kardec asked the spirits, must all spirits pass through the trial of evil to reach the good? And the answer is very short. Not evil, but ignorance. It's very clear. So God's plan, we have to go through evil, not through ignorance. Because sometimes we tend to see it, and I have here that even inside Spiritism. Sorry?
You said.
Yeah. I have to go not to evil, but through ignorance. Yeah, sorry. Because I have heard that even inside Spiritism, oh, don't worry when you do something. And in some ways it is, but don't worry, because we do have to do the bad to learn the good. Not at all. We don't. But it justifies just what we're doing right now. And unfortunately, in the level of evolution that we are right now, it is what's going to push us back to the good, right? It's when we pay the consequences of the evil that we do, there's like, oh, now I understand it hurts. Okay, so we're not going to go in the other way. But did we need to go through it? No, we didn't. We made a choice, right? So that's the symbology of Genesis. And actually, I'm doing the study of Genesis with Darov, which is many episodes, which I highly recommend. It's very good. That he says that you only have the rest of the Bible because of Genesis. Because if Genesis had not happened, if we have never chose to eat from this tree, we didn't need the rest of the Bible. Jesus didn't have to come. Because it would be in the right trajectory. Because then if you look at the rest of the Bible after Genesis, it's pretty much telling you our path. After we made the mistake and giving us the recipe of, hey, this is how to go back to the path. If we hadn't walked out of the path, we didn't need the rest of the Bible. Right? So this condenses everything. So when did our afflictions started? Well, when we decide to disconnect from God. When we decide to take him out of the command and put ourselves up there, that's when the afflictions started. Because yes, we would be making mistakes out of ignorance, and that would create the laws of action-reaction in the same way, right? But the reactions wouldn't be way less harsh if our mistakes were done only out of ignorance, right? Because I didn't have the intention in there, right? But we brought the afflictions to us when we decided to make the disconnection. So now our plan is all based on our imperfections, and that's what's guiding our lives now. Instead of being guided by God's laws, now we let our lives to be guided by our pride, selfishness, vanity, greedy. And it starts as my single plan, because I decide to take God out, but then someone else decides to do the same, and the same way that the serpent came and said, you know what, I'm going to attract the people here to my side of the plan. I'll do the same thing. I'll try to attract others. And then all of a sudden a plan that was my single plan, it becomes a community plan, and then we have a planet, right? When you look at the planet Earth, that's the big plan that we're following right now. It's the plan where we took God out of the equation and put it ourselves in there, right? That's why we live right now on a planet with so many terror attacks, with so many wars. You cannot anymore turn your TV and not see that something, it was bombed in here, someone was stabbed in there, right? Kids dying because just went to a concert. We took God out of the plan, out of the command, and put ourselves. I don't need him. And we do this constantly. Because it's very easy to see on those big events, but we do constantly. Because every time I take an action and a thought in my day, based on my pride and vanity, and that's in that moment, that's what I did. I take God out of the equation and I put myself. And I like to believe that in the stage that we are, we kind of do back and forth. Some moments we leave with him in the command, some moments we put it ourselves. Some moments we put him in the command, sometimes we put it, right? So the afflictions don't really come from the bad event that's happening. The afflictions come from our vices. That's where they come from. Because you like to think afflictions, like I said, oh, I'm going through this hardship now because I did something. So it's this kind of black and white thing. But the truth is the affliction, the despair, because that's what affliction it is the despair, it comes from my vices. Because it actually comes from how do I deal with the problem? And how do I deal with the problem is going to depend who I am. That's actually what brings the afflictions. And that's why you can see two people in the exactly same situation, and one can go through the situation without despair. I'm not talking happiness, because problems are problem. Nobody's happy because they have a problem. But they can go through this without despair, right? Looking for help, see who can help me, but without despair. And you can see people going through exactly the same problem in complete despair, but the rebellion, I don't like it, I don't deserve it, someone up there gave me the wrong bill because that bill is not mine. People who disconnected from God when they go through hardship, because if God existed, that wouldn't happen, right? I don't deserve to be in this family, right? Same situation. But we deal with the problem, one with despair or affliction, and the other one without. Because the affliction does not come from the problem itself. The affliction comes from our vices. So if I'm someone extremely vain, so vanity for I wake up thinking about my body, or how I look, or my hair, or everything, and I go to sleep thinking about it. And have someone that, we all have a little bit of vanity in us, but it's not who do you think is going to suffer more if they both suffer an accident and now they have some sepals in their bodies. The person's completely like only things about their bodies, or the person, I would love to not have had the accident and now having this defect now in my body. Which one's gonna be more afflicted? The person who's vain. Because not having the perfect body for them, it's an affliction. They have to reach perfection in their bodies, right? Which for someone's like, oh, that's too bad, but it is what it is. I'm gonna keep living with that, right? And if they have faith, they'll say, you know what, there was a good reason, and I will embrace it, right? If that's what God wanted, there's some reason here, I'll embrace it, right? Because we tend to see the affliction as being the problem. It's not the problem. It's our vices. Our vices is what bring the afflictions. And our vices started the day we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Because then I start to use evil is the day that I took God of the command and I put myself in there. So now I'm being commanded by my own vices. And vices bring afflictions. So that's when it started. Which date, then I don't know. When I made that decision back in there, I'm not sure, probably a long time ago, but at some moment I did decide to make this disconnection. Okay. So the book Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec on chapter 7 is called Future Punishment According to the Spiritism. And there is a subsection on this chapter. It's called The Penal Code of Future Life. And it says this: there is not a single imperfection of the soul that does not carry disagreeable and inevitable consequence. Just as there is not one single good quality that's not a source of joy. So always let's think about the other side as well, right? Everything good that we do, we have good consequence. And they see even just the slightest thing good that you have inside of you, will bring you good consequence to you. Because they say even imagine like the most evil, I don't like to use this word, but the most evil spirit. If they even have one thing in there that it's good, they say that's already a sign of progress. It's a sign of change. It's something already that's sparking inside and changing. And we all have that spark inside of us, right? So every good that we have also will be counted. But for every single vice that we have, we're going to have disagreeable consequence. There's no doubt about it. And he says every imperfection is at the same time a cause of suffering and deprivation of blessedness. So that's why it's being very clear. The imperfection is the cause of suffering. So every imperfection is a cause of suffering. And of course, our actions and thoughts are going to cause consequences, but they're based on our own imperfections. So it's not exactly the fact that causes, it's my imperfections that cause the actions and thoughts that eventually are going to create the laws of action and reaction. So that's where suffering comes from our moral imperfections. That's where they come from. So they don't come from the illness that I have to endure. They don't come from the loss of a loved one. They come from my own imperfections. Because if we have more of the good inside of us, if we more of a moral spirits, like high moral spirits, would go through all hardship without. I'm not saying with happiness. We're not in that stage yet, but we definitely won't go with despair, with affliction. We'll accept. We'll work through it. And we'll do our best, and we'll keep going. And we would stop making mistakes based on evil. But we can still make mistakes out of ignorance, because there's so much still for us to learn, right? The more I study Spiritism, the more I realize like there's so much more to learn, and I can imagine the amount of things that we're not even at a level to learn yet. That we're going to have to, I don't know, evolve tenfold for the Spirit. Oh, okay, now you're ready for this other things that before I could not talking about. Imagine the amount of things that's still to be added to this bucket of knowledge that was given to us, right? And I cannot even embrace this bucket yet. Imagine the amount of knowledge that's still to be added in there, right? So we're going to slowly progress, acquire all this knowledge, more intellectual, and better ourselves. So slowly, we put God back in the command, because that's what we need to do. And that's exactly what Emmanuel talks about in this book, which unfortunately has not been translated to the English, so Religião dos Espíritos, which is Religion of the Spirits. And chapter 10 is called Examina a própria aflição, or Analyze Your Own Affliction. And he starts the chapter saying exactly this: analyze your own affliction so your anxiety don't be converted in a devastating storm of emotion. All the afflictions are characterized by types and special names. So what Emmanuel is saying here is, are you in despair? Are you afflicted? Analyze your affliction. Try to see where it's coming from. Oh no, it's coming from because my mom is sick. It is coming from your mom's. No, your mom's sick is the problem that brought up this affliction. But where's your affliction coming from? Well, it's coming from because maybe I cannot accept the fact that she may die from this illness. Maybe because I'm used to have my mom cooking, cleaning, and doing everything for me, and now she's not there. And I can't believe now I have to do all these things. Like, really? Really? Now I have to wash my own clothes? My mom's not here to cook for me? It could be coming from my own selfishness. And I'm super afflicted because now I don't have anybody to cook for me because my mom now is sick in bed. How she dares to do that to me? Unbelievable. Is my affliction coming from her illness? No, it's coming from my selfishness. And sometimes even the selfishness are, I don't want her to go. And we see this in André Luiz. André Luiz's book, Workers of the Eternal Life, where the wife doesn't want the husband to discarnate. And she's holding him, and he has to go. But she doesn't want to lose him. I don't care if that's good for him or not. It's not good for me. He's not going. So it gets to one point where the spirits have to go and take her out of, give her an intuition to get out of the room. So they can break the energy lines that she's keeping, so they can actually take him. It's his moment to go. I don't wanna. Is that out of my love for him? No, it's out of selfishness. I don't want to lose my husband. That's what it is. So that's what Emmanuel is saying here. Analyze your afflictions, because otherwise they're going to become a storm of emotions. Because your suffering is not coming from the action that's happening, the fact that's happening. It's coming from how you're dealing with it. And how I'm dealing with it is going to depend on how I am. What kind of good qualities I have inside of me, and vices. That's what's going to dictate how I'm going to deal with the problem. And then that's what he's saying here. And in fact, Emmanuel, it's a kind of a long chapter, and he gives many examples of the problem and the affliction, right? And that's how it goes. So I just brought a few of them, because that's what he's saying. All the afflictions are characterized by types and special names, so it's specific. So I just brought a few of them, some of his examples. So say, the affliction of the selfishness is the self-worship. So if I'm someone who's selfish, my affliction is going to be the self-worship. Because if I'm selfish and I'm in a position where I cannot self-worship myself, where the attention is not on me, I'll be in despair. We see this in little kids sometimes, but they're kids. It's different. See, out of ignorance. See the difference? Some kids, as soon as you start not giving attention to them, then they start. And they kick you. They want attention. What do you mean? What do you mean? The world's not looking at me? It's an affliction for them. But for them, it's out of ignorance, right? It's out of ignorance. I don't understand that the world doesn't turn around me. I thought the sun, everything turned around me. Eventually they will learn and they say, oh yeah, no, it doesn't. Oh, okay. There's other people in the world. Oh, okay. I thought it was just me and my mom, my dad. But no, there's some other people. So for the selfish person, that's the affliction. And eventually that vice becomes such a huge affliction, in a sense that now I don't want to be like that anymore, because it's hurting me. Because in the beginning it's fun. Yeah, everything's for me. I get all the attention. It gives that sensation of the power that the serpent told the Eve. You're gonna be fantastic. And in the beginning, probably Eve tried. It's like, oh yeah, it's great. Look, I can do whatever I wanna. Yeah, I don't need to worry about anybody. Like, yeah. But then eventually it starts to come the consequence, and the consequence. And selfish people tend to end up alone. Because if I didn't care for my friends, I didn't care for my family, who's gonna care for me when I'm dying? Nobody. I work in a hospital, I see this. People don't get a single visit during their admission to a hospital. Some of them because they were selfish and they disconnect from the whole family. And some of them, unfortunately, because they're paying the price of selfish kids or whatever who say, I don't get my father and my mom. Right? It's the two sides. But those kids who now are selfish and teaching their own kids to be selfish, because when I abandon my own parents, I'm giving the sample to my own kids. They're going to end up alone. And they're going to feel that affliction of being alone, because nobody likes to be alone. Not even the selfish person. So in the end, that self-worship that I don't want to do anymore, because now it's hurting me. But I cannot stop doing it, because it's going to be my affliction. And to break that, it's going to be a path of affliction to get that out of me. Right? Since the affliction of the crime is remorse. I commit a crime. And there Luis has a couple of books that talk about people who commit a crime, killed someone. Nobody knew it. Nobody here. So the justice here, the earth justice, nobody knew. They did like the so-called perfect crime, right? Because I didn't go to jail. Nobody figured out it was me. Perfect crime here, as incarnated. But they carried the remorse their whole lives. That's the affliction of the crime. It's the remorse. They carry through their whole life this remorse. And on top of that, it's going to be the laws of action and reaction, which I think is next lecture. I think it's about action and reaction. So I'm going to have an affliction out there I'm going to carry. And I'm going to carry this remorse even after I discarnate, on top of the consequences of the action. Right? So that's the affliction of the person who commits a crime. Remorse. We do that all the time. Sometimes we do stuff like, and then you have that remorse, like, oh, why did I do that? Because when talking about crime, we're talking, oh, I killed someone, I stole money. No, we do like little crimes every day, or almost every day, right? And you feel the remorse. Why did I do that? Why did I say such a thing? I knew it was going to hurt someone and I did it anyways. Why did I do it? And then you carry that thing, right? Then a lot of times, it only goes away when we go to the person and say, I'm so sorry, I really didn't mean it. And I did it, and then it's because now I repair what I did, right? And it says the affliction of the fanaticism is the intolerance. If I'm a fanaticist, if I really believe that I'm superior to someone, and I have seen, we see this these days actually, people who, because of their intolerance, they are in despair if there's someone in the same room as they are, that they think it's below them. They get in despair, like they cannot be in the same room as this person. It's because they're from other religion, or because they're from a different skin color, or whatever it is. Like it's an affliction. I cannot sit beside this person. So this fanaticism, because this is prejudice, this fanaticism, this brings the intolerance. That's intolerance is an affliction for them, because I I cannot be in the same room with this person. I cannot sit beside this person. Brings affliction to them. So for every vice, there is an affliction connected to it. Right? And that's what Emmanuel invites us here. Let's analyze us. Let's analyze ourselves. Every time we're going through a hard problem, and we go through this with despair, let's analyze why I'm in despair. Why am I feeling so afflicted? Why is it? And then we're going to figure out things very interesting, very painful as well. Very painful. I have done a little bit of an analysis. It's quite painful. Because then you start to realize that, yeah, it looks like I'm very afflicted because of the problem. It's like, no, actually it's my own selfishness. Because it's touching me in a place that I don't like to be touched. In my vice, or in my pride, or my vanity, or my selfishness. So I always like to realize, so every time we reacting to something in life, let's stop and think, am I reacting this based on my vices? Or I'm reacting based on God's law? Because every time I react to something in life based on my vices, the moment I'm eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Again, I'm taking God out of the command and put myself right up there. When I react towards something with God's law, using the God's law, I'm putting him in the command, and I put myself in my right place, which is right, very low down there. That's my right place to be, right? And should smile that at least I have a place. That's how it should be. So what I want to bring to us today is that let's remember the best way for us to reduce our afflictions. And I think at this point, if you reduce, is a great thing already, right? The only way for us to reduce our afflictions is to reconnect with God. There's no other way. It's to reconnect to him. It's put him in the command. Because the moment we put him in the command and put ourselves in our right place, the afflictions will be gone. Because then again, we're going to go back to his original plan of evolving. Yeah, making mistakes, but mistakes are of ignorance. We're going to let our evil side go, and we're going to say, you're in the command and I'm going. Because to have faith is not to believe in God. Because everybody thinks, oh, to have faith in God is to believe in God. I can easily say that probably 90%, I'm just throwing a number in there, 90% of the earth population believes in God. Every single religion here, apparently the name of atheist is not really, if you compare to the people who have religions, it's small. Everybody believes in God. Yeah. Believe it just means I know that there is a being that's above me. But that's not to have faith. That's just to believe. To have faith is to trust. That's what to have faith it is. So let's start to have faith and really trust God. Because trust God is to put him in the command. Because even Adam believed in God, they met him. Okay? They say, oh yeah, come here, see, here's the garden. They met him. They knew he existed. Then in any moment didn't believe he existed. They knew he existed. They just lost the trust. So, oh, I don't need to. So let's have the true faith. Because that is what's going to take our afflictions away. Is to put God back in the command. And when we put him back in command, then we also we really express our true faith. Because we trust him. And if we trust him, we put him in the command. And let him lead us. And our afflictions will be gone. And that's it. Thank you very much.
So, questions, comments? No remorse? No afflictions?
No afflictions. You can eat your apples. Fine, one apple a day.
Well, the subliminal message was putting along. She talks so much about eating because we have our lunch and learn
Yeah, that's
afterwards.
true
It's
too.
getting you very
Yeah.
hungry thinking about that apple. But I'll tell you what I was listening to you, and something came to mind that I hadn't thought about in years. Actually, 40 years ago, I read a book by Edgar Allan Poe called The Telltale Heart. I don't know if anybody has read that book. Edgar Allan Poe is one of the great American poets and writers. Very dark figure. Very dark writing. And I loved reading him when I was a teenager. And The Telltale Heart is a story about a man who kills his wife. Buries her. And he got away with it. As you said.
Yeah, the perfect
Weeks
crime.
and months later, somebody comes around, the police, and starts asking questions. They didn't really think he was guilty or anything. They just wanted to know if he knew what happened to his wife. And then his remorse starts to kick in. He starts to hear her heart. That's because the name of the book, the story, The Telltale Heart. And in his expertise, in his language, you see how slowly the affliction builds on this character, and the remorse and the pain of having done that terrible deed. Wonderful reading. It's a short story. It's not very long. I recommend it, but I won't tell you the end.
That's my affliction.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we think that remorse and goodness is something that we learn, that is part of our growth, right? Of our education, of our evolution, of our spirit. It's not. It's been there with us from the very first day we were created. Our evolution is just us starting to pay attention to what's inside us. Because we see stories from 2,000 years ago, stories from the Greeks, where this theme is already there around remorse. So don't think that we will be more remorseful as we evolve, that we will learn that we're going to be better spirits. Hopefully we will. But remember that all of that seed has been planted in us from the very first day that we were created. So we're ignorant in terms of our knowledge. We're ignorant because we have not unlocked that knowledge that lies within us. I once heard very incorrectly a person that says he's spirit, but spiritist, but he said, you know what, my rationale is as follows. We're imperfect, right? So we make mistakes. But since we're imperfect, it's not our fault that we make mistakes. And in
Very
fact,
convenient.
God created us imperfect. So it's His fault that we make mistakes.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
And basically what you're saying is we shouldn't feel guilty of anything. Right? No. We obviously disagree with this. But you see how it's very easy to take concepts and shift them around to a particular conclusion that simply is not correct. Yes, we are imperfect. We were created ignorant, but it does not redeem us for the responsibilities of the mistakes we make.
Actually, those responsibilities that
Be
makes
higher.
us grows.
Absolutely. So that's the theme that we have to do this, that everything that we go through, these afflictions that are results of our mistakes, they're good for us.
Yeah.
Right? And we are responsible for our errors. But as Teresa said, the degree of responsibilities and the consequences will be different based on our intent.
And I like the example that you brought from the book because it's a perfect example of the so-called plan of the serpent, because that's the product that she tried to sell to us, and that's what the less evolved spirits are trying to sell to us here. Our incarnated friends try to sell it. The evil gives you power. So when he killed his wife, he probably was unhappy. It gave him that sense of, see, I'm in the command. She was in my way. I took it out, and nobody even noticed. Beautiful. So it can give you that initial sensation of, oh yeah, the serpent was right. I can do whatever I want. And really gives me power. I have the control here. I can get rid of my wife whatever time I want. But that's a lie. Because eventually, the consequence of the evil action, it came through his remorse. So, and that's what it is. And some people can go through this a whole incarnated life thinking, oh, see, I am powerful. This thing about God, it doesn't exist. He has no powerful at all. I'm way more powerful than he is. Look, I can do whatever I want to. I steal money, I kill people, nothing happens with me. What's this thing about this, right?
And they become president of the United States.
United States, exactly.
They can do anything.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? And then give that sensation. And we know some spirits, some brothers and sisters of ours, but low evolved spirits that can be for centuries, millennia in the spiritual world, working in the umbrals, thinking that evil is giving them power. And that's an illusion. It does not give them power. It does not. It gives them pain. Eventually gives, and fortunately, eventually it's that pain that's going to make them change. But it's that plan that was presented to Eve is just an illusion. It's a lie. It's a lie. We're never going to be as powerful as God. Even the most evolved spirit is not as powerful as God. Right? So there's no way that Eve was going to be as powerful as God. It may give a temporary sensation of power, but it's temporary because eventually the pain's going to come. Right? And that's a perfect example. Eve was good. The remorse.
That's how you got away with it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Teresa.
No problem. Thank you.
So we're going to set ourselves up for the posse. We're going to bring down the lights. Thank you, everyone who's been watching us online. We will now move to the passes, and after we're done, I have some short announcements, and then we're all ready to go. All of you, who are, of course, are welcome and invited to join us with the Lunch and Learn. Is the activity that we have every month to help us fundraise to support the TSS. Thank you.